So this was me after I said this. I literally feel like I cracked a goddamn code. Now we need to go back a little bit. It's been a few years since my last fitness video, and a lot has happened since then. Let me first give you the quickest rundown of how we got from this to this again. I'm going to start by reminding everyone of my 5 minutes of disclaimers in the first video. They all still apply, every single one. So if you'd like to hear my disclaimers, go back to that video. But I'm going to go out of my way again to say there's nothing wrong with this body. But how we got here was an extremely rough time for me. I won't bore you with the details, but this is the result of me being extremely, extremely ill for over a year. This is not because everything I said in the first video was not true. It's not because I thought I figured it out, but I didn't really. There are a lot of things I want to say about my first video, but this is because I couldn't eat certain things anymore. At one point, I couldn't eat anything at all. I couldn't sleep normally. I wasn't able to move my body hardly at all. I was extremely stressed. Stressed is putting it mildly. My nervous system was in a complete flare-up for a very long time, and your nervous system regulates everything. Between the combination of lifestyle changes that were the result of these health issues and the widespread nervous system dysregulation, I found myself losing every single bit of progress I had made at the end of my first fitness video. What's really cool is that this really awful time in my life led to me learning so many more things about the body, so many more things about the mind, and it gave me a completely different perspective on what health is in so many ways. I am better for it, and the result of learning all these new things about my mental health, my physical health, my body in general, is that I took myself from extremely ill and this to literally the best shape of my life, literally even more fit than I was at the end of my fitness video. But what's also cool about that is that I don't feel the need to stay this level of ripped all year round. I fluctuate now between a few pounds where I go anywhere from this, if I'm like really on top of my stuff, to where I still look great and I'm very happy with my fitness progress because I feel strong, I feel good, and I'm healthy. And that fluctuation just varies between the balance in my life in terms of health. And I've maintained this for years, and the only time it's really varied is when I have another health flare-up, which, again, I'm not going to bore you with the details, but between suspected endometriosis, a whole host of gut issues from endo-related things, I have gone through it a few times. As long as I am able to take care of myself in the ways that I've learned, it's very second nature now. It's very easy. I can say that after doing it for years. This is not a 6-month transformation video where I don't know if I can keep it up. I've done this for years, and the thing that makes it the most possible is probably not what you'd expect. So, this is my updated fitness routine, but it's really about so much more than that because it goes well beyond physical fitness. I touched on this a little in my first video, but it's like cranked up to 11 now. Before I get into exactly how we get there, I'd like to do a quick little reaction to my first fitness video so we can kind of clear up some things that I definitely don't do anymore. Let's begin. I feel like I've tried everything. Oh, you sweet summer child. At the exact time that things were going haywire with my health. Oh, you sweet summer child. Very unfortunately, this Mikey had no idea what was coming. No idea. I was going through some health things back then, but they were kind of just prepping me for what 2021 was. It started in 2020, but oh my God, 2021 was ridiculous. Besides the awful foreshadowing, the very first thing that I did is I worked out 5 days a week, weightlifting. I no longer do that. I have found that if I do it on average about 3 times a week, that's enough to maintain, which is good news. You don't need to be in a gym 5 days a week to maintain a certain level of fitness. Some weeks that was 2 times a week. Sometimes that was 5 times a week. Sometimes that was no times a week. But on average, I would say it's about 3 times a week. We did abs every day. I don't train abs really at all now. I do compound movements that train it naturally, like deadlifts, squats, stuff like that. And my abs look better than they've ever looked. Because unfortunately, abs truly are made in the kitchen. You can make them more pronounced with exercises, but you're still gonna need a really low body fat. Light weights and high reps. Now I do moderate reps, moderate weight, and that's mainly to save time because doing it the other way took forever. I would do some low reps, heavy weight if I could, but because of some health issues that I have, I've been advised not to push it to my limit. But the good news is that I don't have to push it to my limit to get the results that I want. And I think that's a good thing to remind you of as well, that you don't have to do it to the max or perfectly or all the time or all or nothing. I mean, if you're trying to be Arnold Schwarzenegger, I guess you can't achieve those things. You probably need to be very strict and on steroids, but you don't have to struggle all day, every day. You really don't. For most people. I tried to get at least 3 days a week of cardio. I hate cardio. Yeah, that hasn't changed a ton. I try to get at least 2 solid sessions of LISS, low intensity steady state cardio. So biking on the Peloton for 30 minutes, not the crazy up and down hills and stuff, just like steady, at least twice a week, just because it's good for my heart health, which is important to me. I focus more now on getting 10K steps a day, at least 6. That wasn't on my radar at all when I made this video the first time. I try in general to be less sedentary. I have a standing desk now. I have a treadmill that I put under my standing desk while I'm working. I try to do less efficient housework. So rather than gathering a bunch of things and bringing it all into another room at the same time, if I'm cleaning up, I will go back and forth and pick up like 1 or 2 things at a time. Whatever it takes to just move more and not get stiff. The biggest thing that makes that hard is actually when I'm working. The cardio that I could stand is to do HIIT cardio. Oh my God, I did HIIT cardio? No. I do not do that now. HIIT cardio is not for me. I've definitely learned that since the first video. And I do not do that to maintain what I got going on today. In fact, I think that that probably did or would stress out my body way more than is necessary, especially for me to look and feel the way that I want to. This was also before I knew certain things about myself, like that I had something called HEDS and POTS, and I tend to run low on blood pressure anyway, which makes my POTS symptoms worse. The up and the down and all of the craziness, not good for me personally. One of the lessons to take away from this video is that it's about finding what works for truly you specifically. And take it from me, I have a lot of things that mean I have to really adjust what I can and can't do. I cannot lift really heavy weights. I can't take it to the max because of one health condition. I can't do HIIT cardio really without paying for it because of a different health condition. I cannot comfortably do yoga because of HEDS. These are things that I have learned about myself in the past few years that just mean I can't do certain things, but it really allows me to focus on the stuff I can do. And that has been enough. I also walk or do low intensity steady state cardio when I'm watching Netflix or a movie. And that habit stacking has made getting that done so much easier. I would watch Judge Judy while I did cardio, and that made it a lot easier to deal with.
Keep your thighs on the pad. Don't push with your feet. Breathe. One more. Yeah. Beautiful.
I can max out the machine now. Damn. So I've definitely gotten stronger over the years. I want those sexy capped shoulders like Sarah Connor. That's what I want. This is something that has not changed. However, I got them. I still want them to be bigger. Eating. The thing I've always struggled with, the thing that I've never figured out up until now. Well, the thing is, I figured out what worked enough back then, but I still had a ton to learn about this. In my first video, I had a trainer and I was workout focused more than I was nutritionally focused. I did touch on it a little bit, but really it was like the physical exertion that helped me really reach my goals. I have had several other trainers in the years since then. I've learned a lot from every single one of them. A couple were bikini competitor coaches, which maybe I'll touch on in a little bit because I know that's how I ended the last video. I worked with multiple dietitians, so I've also learned a lot about nutrition from experts. Even learning the difference between a dietitian and a nutritionist was a helpful part of my journey. Part of working with a dietitian more recently has actually been related to my potential endometriosis, but I've still learned a lot even through that process. I don't cook. I don't like cooking. I don't know how to cook. I'm a terrible cook. I'm so happy to say this has changed, but because it was by force, really, through all the health problems. Oh my God, when I did cook in the old one, I cooked the saddest shit. We've come so far, you guys. The difference is I'm not just slapping a meal together to get in some real foods now. I'm putting a meal together to get nutrients and real food, but also to find a way to actually enjoy it. I was not concerned with enjoying it back then, and that's a top priority for me now because life is too damn short to not enjoy as much as possible. I still don't really love to cook, but I'm much better at it than I was before. In fact, I throw down. I got a whole set of meals that are really, really, dare I say, good. You have to be able to cook something. Not true, my friends. I found a way. I really did. If you're starting where I started 6 years ago, that is the right approach. But I was missing out on a ton of helpful shit by still taking the shortcuts wherever I could. There's nothing wrong with the way I did it before, with my level of skill and patience and knowledge at that point. Baby steps over the years was absolutely the right path for me, because if you had thrown all the cooking stuff and nutrition stuff on me all at once, I would have quit altogether. They were a lot of little changes over a very long time, and that is an important part of sustainability. It's gotten to the point where not too long ago, I was literally cooking all of my meals, literally all of them, because I had to, and that was for an endo-related thing. Again, wouldn't recommend, but what I'm saying is I really can cook now, which is great. I'm not shaming that, Mikey. That Mikey needed that, but I'm really glad I don't need it anymore. I made all the healthy things enjoyable so that I don't need to wait for the unhealthy treats, which they're not unhealthy in moderation. We're going to go over this too. There's a difference between I'm having this because I would like to and I enjoy it, and I feel like I have to have it. I need it. I can't not have it. That's when you know you have a problem. And that's where I was. Right now, at this current moment in time, I would give anything for him to just text me and be like, eat a cookie tonight, Mikey. You've earned it. Ah, yes. The notorious cookie meltdown. Could I be healthier? Absolutely. Is it better than how I was eating? Absolutely. Did it work for me? Yes. Still important and still true. BCAAs, I took these before my workout and after my workouts. Another thing that's changed, I do not take BCAAs anymore. I have had no trouble gaining muscle or losing fat without them. I ate a minimum of 5 hours apart. I do not do that anymore. I eat my next roughly planned out meal when I get hungry for it. I was doing intermittent fasting. I do not do that now, and I haven't for years. I was doing cardio fasted to burn even more fat. From what I've seen in the years since, the science is actually out on this one. You can do cardio fasted or not fasted depending on how it makes you feel, whichever one you prefer. If I feel like doing cardio first thing in the morning sometimes just to feel extra productive at the beginning of my day, I will, but most of the times I've eaten at least one meal before I do any exercise because I feel better that way and I lift better. The one exception is actually lower body days when I know I'll be doing hip thrusts, because with endo-related things, I get really bloated and it hurts my abdomen to do hip thrusts with the bar when I've got like an endo belly situation going on. So that's really the only time that I will intentionally not eat before working out. I always got enough calories in a day to make sure that I was in a healthy range. So back then I had a rough idea of calories, but I didn't track macros. That's one of the biggest differences between then and now. I'll get into that more later. He told me to mix a tablespoon of apple cider vinegar into a full glass of water and drink that entire glass of water before I ate anything. That way you feel fuller sooner. So I did that pretty religiously. I do not drink apple cider vinegar in a glass with water before meals anymore. I have not done that since then. But drinking a glass of water before a meal definitely makes you feel fuller. I just try to drink a lot more water now throughout the day because, you know, it's our lifeblood and stuff. But the glass before a meal thing didn't really stick for me, nor did it need to. The biggest, most important, most dramatic thing that I changed is that I cut sugar. Oh, you sweet summer child. Yes, I did. And for a while, that was a great idea. Until it wasn't. I could do an entire video on how I cut sugar and the why and how I added it back in again. It's not what you think, which is why I should probably make a video on it. Fine. Fruit type sugar is okay, but I don't want that kind of sugar. I want the bad shit. Oh, look at how far you've come. Can make me cry. I love fruit sugar now, and it's actually helped me maintain this sustainable thing I've been doing for a few years, so it's a nice point of growth. And it just makes me sad that America's food is just so full of sugar that there's even sugar in ketchup, and you are just so badly addicted to this stuff. This, but also about the entire processed food industry. Didn't learn that one yet. Oh my God, there's a disclaimer about 95% of foods being off limits to me at 218. Sweet summer child. The endo-related diet restrictions I've had to go on in the last few months just make that sentence so rich. At one point, there were like, I swear, 5 foods I could pick from. Literally 5. And I'm talking like spices and oils and condiments and everything included. Like I had 5 things to pick from. Again, wouldn't recommend. That was to try to help my pain And it didn't. Anyway, that's a completely separate situation. I'm just gonna get surgery. This is more information than you need, okay? And here's the wild news. When I looked like this, I was still eating a low sugar diet. So low sugar in and of itself is not a cure-all the way that I kind of made it sound in the first video. Anyway, I'll save that for the sugar video. Again, it's one of those things where you weigh it and eventually it's so much more worth it to deal with the hassle of having 95% of foods unavailable to you in a supermarket. I don't really agree with this sentiment because I ended up finding a moderate way that was very sustainable for me with healthy substitutes that didn't feel restrictive. The median line ran losing weight or inches or whatever your goal is. It doesn't look like this. It looks like this, but the overall median line, it's been a long time since I've been in math class, but is that median line? The overall trend goes down if you stick with it. That's still true, and I can show that on a graph now. Getting a Fitbit helped me so much. I don't like doing guesswork when it comes to fitness. That is still true, even more so today. I love data. Now I use my Apple Watch and an Oura Ring, or a nutritional food tracker app like MacroFactor or Grounds, but only to help me not to obsess with. I had no idea. I must have been eating like 3,000 calories a day before, thinking that I was only eating like 1,500, and I didn't realize I was nowhere near that. I still think it's true that you don't really know how much you're eating. I tracked my food very consistently for about 2 years, just as I was learning and going through and recovering from a lot of my health stuff. And I really thought I had a very good grip on how many calories I was eating when I decided to stop tracking everything after that for a little while because I wanted to take a break from it and see what happened. When I decided to track my normal day a while after I had stopped doing it, even after I had tracked for so long, I was still off by 500 calories or so in a day. And that's significant if you're trying to lose weight or if you notice that you're suddenly gaining weight. I am not interested in simply looking a certain way at the expense of health. Still very, very true. Now more than ever. I'd like to do a bikini competition next. Oh, about that. I looked into doing a bikini competition after that video. I hired a coach, 2 different coaches, 2 different times with the attempt to do it. The first time COVID started as I was in the middle of doing it. Then a couple years later when I got healthy again and I was like naturally looking kind of fit anyway, I was like, you know what? I'm probably not that far from a bikini competition. So let me hire a coach and do it again and surprise everyone. I basically learned that bikini competing, while it is very cool and the women look very strong and beautiful to me, health is not at the forefront of these things, and it is the most important thing to me. Okay, those are the things that I wanted to respond to from my first video so we could get those out of the way, the things I definitely don't do anymore, the things that I still very strongly agree with, and some minor tweaks on how I feel. Now let's get into the good shit. I was focused on a particular set of things in my first video and the first time that I really started to kick my fitness into gear. I was really focused on the mechanical parts of losing weight. Showing up to the gym, drinking more water, working out, eating better, sleep, all important things, don't get me wrong. But the thing is that generally losing weight is not difficult because we don't know what to do. Most of us know that if we eat cleaner, we move more, and if we're roughly consistent about both, most people will lose weight, barring some kind of medical condition that makes it harder for you to gain or lose weight. So why is it we struggle so much to really do this? To either do it at all or to do it and keep it that way? Because of the health issues that I ended up going through after I had made this video, I have learned that the root of so many things in life, and this included, it's not for a lack of not knowing what to do. It is the mental root under it all. So this video is not about the things that I've done going from my literal physical rock bottom in terms of health in my life to the healthiest and strongest I've ever been, because my specifics truly might not work for you. And these 3 things that I've done, eat better, move more, be consistent with both, are the things you need to do. But rather than focus on the specifics of that, I'm going to focus on all the reasons why we can't seem to do them or stick to them. Part of it is absolutely picking something that is sustainable for you. But a lot of what makes something sustainable is the root emotionally of why you haven't been able to be consistent in the first place. Consistency with fitness, with health, is the only thing that works long term. Not perfection, but consistency. And doing that is entirely mental. Again, barring illness, physical limitations, medical conditions. But in terms of speaking to the average person, that is the key. And a cynical part of me kind of feels like The fitness industry really benefits off of you not knowing that. The way the industry currently works guarantees lifelong customers. It guarantees the yo-yo dieter. And it's not that no one's talking about this, but I think this should be the number one thing talked about at this point. And then all the things that we already know how to do or what to do should be the next part. It doesn't matter if you know what the steps are to take if you don't know how to take them. So this video is about really how to get out of your own way. And I promise if you really do these things that I'm talking about in this video, you will be fixing the root of why you either never get to or stay at the place you want to be in your health journey. So I really think that it comes down to two options, and it depends on where you are in the process. Going outside of your goals, especially if you put it in the analogy of eating, is an indicator that something is missing and essentially needs nourishment. So option one, you basically want to figure out what needs nourishment in your life, in your emotional, mental state, and heal it. Option two, and this is an option that I relied on entirely at first, and I still do rely on as I'm still going through the process of option one. Option two is finding healthier options and alternatives to help alleviate that part of you that needs nourishment in the meantime. Let me explain. Let's start with option one since that's really the goal, and then I'll go over some of the very helpful shortcut type ways I've found to help you get closer to your goals in the meantime as you're working on the real root cause. It'll still make your life better, but it's not the end all be all because really, again, the key is consistency, and the key to consistency is mental. How can we get closer to option one, nourishing the part of us that needs nourishing, healing the parts that need healing, and getting out of our own way? Well, first thing that you need to do is take a really deep, hard, honest look at why you do the things that you do and the habits that prevent you from reaching your goals. Not even just fitness goals, really any goal in your life. But I feel like our fitness goals are a very clear example sometimes of the habits that don't serve us. Because again, we know what we could do to improve our health in a pretty short amount of time. I mean, truly just walking more, moving more, eating better, drinking more water, sleeping. We know what to do. Anytime you veer from your goals or what you know would improve your life, why? What is the root feeling underneath why you are making decisions that are not in your best interest and your goals in those moments? It could be something like you emotionally eat because food is a comfort or it's something that you can control. Do you not really want to get up and move more even though you know it would be good for you because you feel burnt out in other areas of life and you really just feel like you need a break, even if that means to the detriment of your health? Are you not staying consistent because deep down you actually feel like you don't deserve to be happy and healthy and to have reached your goals and to feel like you're taking care of yourself? There can be a lot of mental blocks to not doing the things that we know we could be doing to improve our health. Those are just some examples. They're definitely not true for everybody. So again, just keep that in mind. For example, for some people, eating is about control. And in my case, personally, I've found when I've done some of the mental work for this, that my bad eating habits that kept me from my goals were more about freedom. And I am absolutely an emotional stress eater, bored eater. I have bad habits with food. If I was really stressed and I thought that a Coke would make me feel better, I did it. Understanding that has helped me go, okay, I want freedom in my life. That's the underlying thing that I'm trying to get at when I've struggled with binge eating in the past, which I don't think I've ever gotten into this. Started when I had cheat meals, which turned into 2 cheat meals, which turned into a cheat day, which turned into literally a binge eating habit. That was many years ago. But part of fixing that was understanding that for me, anything that feels like restriction is never going to work for me. I crave freedom. And if I don't feel like I have it in my schedule, in my diet, in my lifestyle, I push back really hard in other ways and I self-sabotage. Finding the thing that works for me, that keeps me consistent, is finding every bit of the process that feels like freedom. And there have been a couple times in the last few years where I have started to find myself having a harder time staying aligned with my goals, especially when I was going through some really scary times with all of the health stuff in the last few years. And I found myself not falling all the way back into disordered eating, but definitely getting closer to it than is comfortable because I could tell that I was starting to do a self-sabotage thing. And when I realized, it's because I don't feel this sense of freedom anymore. I feel very restricted in my life for one reason or another. I can either try to lift those restrictions in my life that's causing that feeling and that I am now trying to use food for, or I can make sure that my food choices do feel like freedom. I can attack it from both sides, really. And for me, the moderation, the balance that I got out of that to find consistency was to find healthier alternatives that don't feel restrictive at all, which is option 2, and I'm gonna go into that more. And honestly, this is really counterintuitive to a lot of people, I'm sure, but macro counting has been another piece of the freedom puzzle for me specifically. For some people, macro counting would be incredibly restrictive, and it could trigger different kinds of disordered eating. For me personally, counting my macros gave me the sense of freedom because I can be very flexible with what I eat and still hit my goals. I can still hit my protein goals. I can still eat foods that I really enjoy. They just need to fit roughly in my macros. And they don't have to every day. But knowing that I'm still working towards my goal, even if I have chocolate that day or every day, let's be real, it's every day. That's awesome to me. I don't have to be restricted by my health goals. They are an asset to me. And that's a big difference between the last video I made and this one. Anyway, let's keep going. I think it's also important to figure out your why. I'm sure you've heard this a million times before when it comes to other areas of your life or in fitness, but it really is important. You need to find the why that makes it worth going through the initial downsides of changing your habits, eating cleaner, moving more, being consistent. For me, that was when I hit my rock bottom with health, and it was so miserable not having my health that my why came out of that. And I decided that as long as there is nothing physically preventing me from doing the things that are important to me, I'm going to find a way to do them. It's a non-negotiable for me anymore. I want to maintain physical and mental longevity for as long as I can. And that means taking care of myself in these ways consistently. And when I say consistently, I do not mean every day. I do not mean every week even. And because of the health things that I've been dealing with on and off, I don't even mean every month. I actually haven't been able to work out in the last month as I make this video right now because of a very new annoying health thing that I'm going through right now. Because without getting too much into it, the priority right now is getting through the current thing that I'm going through. And then I will ease right back into everything that I know I can maintain consistently and it doesn't feel restrictive to me. And if I just keep showing up, even a little bit, that'll be enough. It's about showing up a little bit over a long period of time. That's what I mean by consistency. Your why could be because you have kids, because you want to have kids, because you want to be in the best shape possible to be able to take care of someone that you love, because you love yourself and you want to take care of yourself, because you have fur animals that rely on you and depend on you. I'm not projecting here. I just really love my dogs. Your why is very important. Motivation will come and go. And when those periods dip, your why is a great way to get back into just doing the things that you know help you and your bigger purpose. And maybe I should have started with this, but I also think that an important piece of this, the mental, emotional aspect of this, is to really consider, are these your goals? Do you really want the goals you think you want? Are your goals for you? Have they been chosen by you? Or are they coming from a place of fear or inadequacy or feeling like you're not good enough unless you reach these goals? I think it's really, really important to go out of your way to make sure you know where they're coming from. Because maybe part of the reason you haven't been consistent with working out 5 times a week, if that's what you think your goal is, and having a 6-pack, maybe part of the reason you're not consistent with that is because you don't really want that. Maybe there's a part of you that just feels like you need to be that way for someone else, or because of societal expectations and beauty standards or whatever it is. And I think we underestimate how often we might think we want something that has kind of been inceptioned into our brain through someone else or society in general. You don't need to do anything you don't want to do. Maybe you have a very moderate goal, and maybe you're putting way too much pressure on yourself to get this very idealized version of it in your head. Health is so much more than what you look like physically. It's even so much more than how strong you are, how much muscle you have. Having muscle is one of the best things you can have as you age because it really helps you in so many different ways. But to me, one of the most beneficial things to your health is to be happy, truly, to be less stressed, to enjoy your life, to enjoy the process of living day to day. I would put that above everything. And that's gonna look really different from person to person. I hesitated making this video for a long time, even because I would never want someone to listen to me talk about the mechanical aspects of fitness and think this should be the goal. It can be whatever you want. So in terms of fixing the mental stuff, this is the process, and you just keep repeating it over and over again. What's stopping you from being consistent right now? Is it totally reasonable and you just need to give yourself a break? We all need breaks. We don't need to be super strict with ourselves. Again, I hope that I've been making this clear as I go along. But if you really feel like you have gotten off of your consistency, it's beyond the point of you even wanting to get back into your routine once you can. Why? Get very curious about it. Get very honest with yourself. Get to the root feeling or emotion or the thing that is motivating you more than your goals and your wants for your health and fitness. There are lots of ways to heal those things. Like I said earlier, sometimes it's just about finding an alternative to the feeling underneath of it. In my case, the sense of freedom. There are ways that I can make myself feel free that do not involve self-sabotaging. And that was a good solution for me in a lot of these areas. Sometimes it's more involved. I think the root of these things can be very heavy and very serious for some people. And it might mean talking to a professional. You're going to hear me talk about IFS therapy probably a lot from here on out because it's helped me so much. But IFS therapy is something that I've utilized a lot to understand the root of my behaviors and my feelings, my actions, my wants, my needs, and understanding those parts of me has helped me find better solutions or to heal those parts entirely so that everything's just more functional. It's a little bit vague, but I promise I'm going to be expounding on this a lot over the course of many videos just because I feel like it comes up with everything in life now. But what I'm trying to say yet again is that this part is also individual to you. I can't unfortunately give you a roadmap of exactly how to fix the mental things. All I can tell you is that the general thing that you're aiming for is to pay attention and then experiment until you figure out what's going to help you feel more whole and to get rid of those blocks that are there that are stopping you from being consistent and doing the things that you want to be doing. Now that we've got what I think is the important stuff out of the way, I will also briefly go over option 2, which honestly is nearly just as important because I think that the process of healing the mental stuff is a very long journey. It's probably a lifelong journey. New things will probably come up, and we need a way to try to lessen our self-sabotaging behaviors while we're working on the big scary stuff. We don't need to be perfectly healed to improve our lives, and that's what option 2 is. So it's funny because option 2 is what I thought this video was going to be about a couple years ago if I was going to remake it. But I was just getting into the good stuff right around then. I had no idea how much I was about to learn. I don't even want to call it a shortcut. It's a helpful placeholder, but there's still lots of goodness you can pull from this option. So let's say you're working on yourself mentally. You know that you have a lot to kind of heal and work through and process and examine, and it's gonna take a while, and some days are better than others, and then some weeks are better than others, and then some months are better than others, but you don't want to keep yo-yoing because it makes it really hard. It might be demotivating. You might feel a little demoralized from it, and you still want to improve your health while you're working on those things. There's a few things you can do to basically make yourself physically healthier while you're in the process of making yourself mentally healthier. So after my first video, I started to begin this journey of figuring out the sustainable version of this for myself. And especially after I got sick, I needed to completely revamp what that looked like for me. This might not work for everyone, but the beginning of that journey for me was getting educated about the food industry in general. I soaked up as much information as I could from studies, from books, from documentaries about the food industry, the way that it works, the way that it is basically designed to make you addicted to their foods. They literally find the sweet spot that makes you come back for more. And unburdening the shame of not being able to quit a lot of these processed foods, and especially processed sugar, and relying on these things in so many different ways to feel normal was a huge first step for me. It's really hard to move through shame when you are completely weighed down by it. And I gave myself so much permission to be imperfect when I realized that it's designed to be hard to avoid processed foods in general. You don't need to avoid processed foods all the time. You just want to incorporate a lot more whole foods. As many as you're comfortable incorporating would be an improvement. I don't believe in strictness with this kind of stuff. I don't believe in perfection in this kind of stuff. I don't believe in rigidity. That should be really clear by now because freedom. But I started to look at myself honestly like I had an actual addiction problem, and recognizing that about myself helped me realize like, oh, it's not my fault that I'm here. Addictive food industry, unmet emotional needs, disordered eating. It took me a long time to figure that out. And then I needed to find the system that worked well for me to get around the fact that I did have an addiction to processed foods and processed sugar while I worked on the emotional needs part. For me, personally, that looked like macro counting, which is so funny saying that because I know when I made that first video, I hated the idea of macro counting. I hated it. I thought it was really confusing. I thought it was really overwhelming. I didn't know how to do it. And then I could make a whole video on that. One day when I realized it's actually quite easy to do and I got in the habit of doing it, I was like, wow, this is the best thing ever. But again, we've talked about how that's not helpful for everybody. So I'm not saying macro counting is the solution. It's not for a lot of people. Anyway, another thing that helped me that's probably a lot more reasonable for a lot of people is just to find healthy alternatives for the thing I craved. This was huge for me and I cannot emphasize it enough. I found a version of every single thing I loved and then I found a healthier option. That truly was how I went from this to this. That was how I did it. And I worked out a few times a week, I lifted weights, and I moved more, and I healed my nervous system. But that was out of whack. If you have a healthy nervous system, you don't have to worry about that. But that is how I did this. And this. And this. And this. The way I kept it like that is the emotional underlying root. So I really love chocolate. This should be apparent by now too. I found healthier alternatives for anything that hit my chocolate craving. Koya is a good example of this. They're protein shakes, but I get the cocoa cereal ones and they taste like chocolate shakes and they're so good. Olipop, Smart Sweets were actually integral to this part of the journey for me. They were my first healthier alternative to candy because they hit that part in my brain that went, you're getting a little treat. But this time it was less sugar and more fiber. And eventually little treats became fruit, bananas, apples. Oh my God. I could look forward to an apple, let me tell you. Kiwis, I love kiwis. And that is sugar. I actually still love sugar. Heck, they're very processed, but even Quest chips instead of Doritos, that was a healthier alternative because now there's protein in them. And that's something. I'm closer to hitting my protein goals then. But I got my chip fix, Zevia, stevia sweetened sodas. You just start to move things a little bit to a slightly healthier version wherever you feel comfortable, wherever you can, wherever it doesn't feel too restrictive for you and you still look forward to it and enjoy it. That for me was so important because eventually I had a whole new set of foods and everything I was eating I loved and I didn't feel like I was restricting myself at all and I was seeing great results. Another part of this for me was quite literally looking at a list of healthy whole foods. Here are healthy fats to pick from. Here are healthy carbs to pick from. Here are healthy proteins. And just writing down every single one of those things that I knew I liked. And just forgetting the rest for now. Just forget the rest. Look, I'll try to incorporate more Brussels sprouts into my diet eventually, but I don't need to do it right now. I'm just getting used to this. I'm just figuring it out. I'm gonna get variety based on strictly what I like right now. All the whole foods that I definitely can stomach. And that opened me up to a lot of whole foods that I never made any effort to eat before. I don't like walnuts, but I love cashews. Okay, cashews are still good for you. They're still a healthy fat. I don't like kale in almost any form, but I really like kale chips. Okay. That's a way to incorporate kale. I don't like lettuce, but I like spinach. I can incorporate spinach. A great healthy alternative is switching from mayo to Greek yogurt for things. For example, tuna salad sandwiches. I'll take sourdough bread because that's good for your gut. I will mix a can of tuna with Greek yogurt instead of mayo because it's high in protein. I'll sprinkle a little lemon juice in there to give it a little more punch. I'll put wild chips on top, which are great chip alternatives because they are packed with protein and they're made with chicken and egg whites and good stuff. They're processed, but they are a better alternative than just Pringles. I'll put them on top and it's the best tuna salad sandwich ever. And that is a healthier alternative than a super processed white bread, tuna with mayo and Pringles sandwich. You see what I'm saying? It's almost the same thing. I think it tastes better and it's much higher in protein and it's just it's so good. I've basically found 50 different ways to do that over and over. And now I'm working on adding more variety into my diet when I'm not dealing with the restrictive health issue related diets. That's another thing I should mention. Moderation in eating out. I found kind of a Rolodex of places that I felt were a pretty good eat out option. When I wanted to eat out, I didn't want to feel restricted like I couldn't, but I also wanted to make a slightly healthier choice. So instead of going to Chick-fil-A, I would get Chipotle because to me, they're basically equally delicious, but Chipotle is going to have healthier options for me than Chick-fil-A. Do you see what I'm saying? It's not from here to here, it's from here to here. And then eventually you'll be comfortable doing there and there and there and there. Until you fix the emotional root of things, consistency is aided by micro improvements to your habits. It's getting up to walk just a little more instead of walking 10,000 steps. These things add up. And they helped me a ton in physically getting to the point where I felt like I was strong and healthy again. And then I realized that in order to stay that way, I needed to get to the root of why I might start self-sabotaging again. Why, if I know what works, and I really knew what worked at that point, why would I ever veer from that when I feel good that way? It's either for me now because of health issues that absolutely prevent me from doing my routine, or it would be an unmet emotional need that I am excited to discover and learn about and find a way to solve or heal or process. I really think I have it down between those things, and it's worked really, really well for me. And I'm so thankful that it's worked well for me, because when I'm going through these health issues that don't have anything to do with the routines that I've been in, by the way, I don't want to get into the specifics of my health, but there's nothing that I can do diet-wise and exercise-wise that is going to like cure my potential endometriosis. I say potential because there's no way to actually be diagnosed with it until you've had a laparoscopic exploratory surgery, and I haven't had that yet because I'm terrified. But these are things I'm dealing with that have nothing to do with the lifestyle choices that I've made that have improved my life. So just to be clear on that. But I'm so thankful for all of this, because I am not worried anymore that if I can't work out for a month, or I now have to eat differently and I can't have my normal healthy alternatives, I'm not worried that I won't be able to get back to where I was. What I've figured out works consistently for me. And the foundation of those things, like I said, is consistency, and the root of consistency is mental. So that's basically the gist of my updated fitness routine. I hope that's helpful to some of you. And I just want to stress one more time that health to you can look however you want it to look. Just make sure it's for you and be good to yourself. That's the whole point of this. Be good to yourself and find joy in as many places as you can. Not that this Mikey didn't know what she was doing, but she was on the precipice of something more helpful than she ever could have imagined. And it started with her finding an interest in fitness right here. So I'm not knocking her. All right, I'm losing my voice. That's everything, I think.